Stop. Right now. Don't scroll. Don't click away. The next 37 minutes will either change your life forever or be the biggest spiritual opportunity you've ever walked away from. Beloved soul, what I'm about to tell you has never been shared publicly before. 3 nights ago, I was awakened at 3:17 a.m., not by an alarm, not by a sound, but by a presence so heavy it made the air in my room thick like honey. And in that sacred stillness, I heard your name, not audibly, but carved into the atmosphere like lightning splitting sky. Your soul's true name, the one only heaven knows, the one that's been echoing in the throne room while you've been convinced you were forgotten. Tonight, yes, this very night, heaven has marked your calendar for divine intervention. What I'm about to share with you carries a 48-hour spiritual window that will not open again in the same way. The Father has been waiting for this exact moment when your heart would be tender enough to receive what He's been holding for you. This message isn't for everyone watching. It's for the one whose heart just skipped a beat reading those words. It's for the soul who's been carrying a weight you can't name, aching for something you can't define, waiting for someone to finally speak the words your spirit has been desperate to hear. You know who you are. Your chest is tight right now, isn't it? That's not anxiety. That's recognition. It's your spirit awakening to the sound of its true shepherd's voice, cutting through every counterfeit word you've been offered, every shallow promise that left you more spiritually hungry than before. I've been where the other voices cannot reach, in the secret place, where heaven whispers its deepest mysteries, where the Father shares the blueprints He's been drawing for your life while you've been convinced you were forgotten. What I'm about to share with you didn't come from books or conferences or borrowed revelations. It came from the throne room itself, downloaded in the stillness, where only the chosen few dare to linger long enough to hear. You've been searching, haven't you? Moving from message to message, hoping someone, anyone, would finally speak the words your soul has been crying out to hear. But every spiritual voice you've encountered has felt incomplete, like they were describing a God they'd heard about rather than one they'd actually encountered, like they were offering you spiritual fast food when your soul was starving for a feast prepared in the secret place. That hollow feeling you've carried after every other spiritual encounter, that lingering emptiness despite all the powerful messages you've consumed, that's because you were created for deeper waters, beloved. Your spirit recognizes the difference between religious performance and authentic divine encounter. You can sense when someone is speaking from the outer courts versus when they're carrying words from the Holy of Holies. The Father has been whispering your name in chambers where angels hold their breath to listen. He's been speaking of you in conversations that would make your heart stop if you could hear them, not because of what you've done or achieved, but because of who you are to Him, a daughter whose absence from the secret place has left an empty chair that no one else can fill. You see, while others have been shouting about breakthrough and dancing around promises, you've been in the wilderness not as punishment but as preparation. Every tear you've cried in private has been collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation has been recorded by scribes whose only job is to document the conversations between the Father and His beloved ones. But here's what those other voices could never tell you, because they've never been close enough to hear it themselves. Your wilderness wasn't meant to break you. It was designed to birth something in you that could only emerge through divine pressure. You haven't been forgotten or overlooked. You've been hidden carefully, intentionally, lovingly hidden, until this exact moment when heaven decided it was time to reveal what's been growing in the secret place of your soul. The blueprint the Father has been drawing for your life bears no resemblance to what you've been settling for. It's written in a language that only hearts who've learned to listen in the silence can read. It contains specifications for a destiny so specifically crafted for you that no one else could ever walk it out, no matter how hard they might try. This isn't about positive thinking or spiritual formulas. This isn't about learning techniques or following steps. This is about recognizing the sound of your Creator's voice, calling you by the name He gave you before time began. Not the name others have called you, not even the name you've called yourself, but the name that's been echoing in eternity, since before your first breath. Right now, as these words penetrate the deepest chambers of your heart, heaven is holding its breath. Angels are leaning in. The cloud of witnesses is gathering close, because they know something you're just beginning to remember. This moment was written in the stars before your parents ever dreamed of you. This encounter was scheduled in heaven's calendar before you ever knew you needed it. If your heart is racing, if tears are threatening to fall, if something inside you is saying, this feels different, then you're hearing correctly. This isn't another message about your destiny. This is your destiny beginning to awaken. This is the voice you've been created to recognize, calling you out of every place you've been hiding and into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. The Father has sent me to whisper what He's been longing to tell you. Himself, you are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not broken beyond repair. You are His masterpiece, and tonight, the artist himself wants to show you the next stroke of his brush. But here's what makes this moment sacred, beloved. Only those whose hearts have been prepared through divine pressure can hear what comes next. Only those who've learned to listen with more than their ears can receive what heaven is about to release. Your wilderness has been your qualification, not your disqualification. And now it's time to discover what was being built in you while you thought everything was falling apart. You have until midnight tonight to fully receive what's coming. After that, the spiritual atmosphere shifts, and this exact revelation won't be available again until the next divine alignment, which could be months away. Beloved, what if I told you that every scar across your soul is actually a treasure map? Right now, as these words settle into the tender places of your heart, something extraordinary is happening. The Father is lifting His finger to trace each wound you've carried, and instead of seeing damage, He's revealing coordinates, sacred coordinates to deposits of gold that were buried the moment your heart first broke. You see, while other voices have been teaching you to bandage your pain or pray it away, heaven has been whispering a different truth. Your wounds aren't obstacles to your destiny. They're the mining shafts that lead directly to it. Pause this video for 10 seconds. Close your eyes. Think of one memory that still makes your chest tight. Got it? Good. Now place your hand on your heart and whisper this. Where is the treasure in this story? I'll wait. You have until midnight tonight to complete this sacred excavation. Heaven is releasing treasure maps, but only to those who dig before dawn breaks tomorrow. The spiritual soil is soft right now, beloved, but it's hardening with each passing hour. Did you feel that shift, that subtle recognition that perhaps, just perhaps, there's something hidden in that dark place you've been avoiding? That's not hope talking, beloved. That's divine intelligence awakening in you. The same intelligence that turned Joseph's pit into a palace, David's betrayal into a psalm, and Esther's orphaning into a crown. The enemy convinced you that your pain disqualified you, but heaven is revealing that your pain located you. Every rejection mapped out where your greatest gifts were buried. Every betrayal marked the spot where your most powerful calling lay dormant. Every moment when they overlooked you, underestimated you, or walked away from you, those weren't setbacks. Those were heaven's mining crews, blasting through the surface of your soul to reveal the veins of gold that could only be accessed through divine pressure. Think about Sarah, beloved, 90 years of empty arms, 90 years of whispered shame, 90 years of wondering if God had forgotten her name. But those weren't wasted years, they were incubation years. Every month her womb stayed empty. Heaven was preparing a miracle so impossible that it would be talked about for generations. Her barrenness wasn't her punishment, it was her positioning. The same wombs that felt cursed became the birthplace of nations. Your story carries the same blueprint. That job they passed you over for, you thought it was rejection, but heaven calls it redirection towards something they could never offer you. That relationship that crumbled in your hands, you thought it was failure, but heaven calls it preparation for a love so pure it could only be received by someone who'd learned the difference between connection and codependency. That church that made you feel invisible. You thought it was abandonment, but heaven calls it graduation from religious performance into authentic intimacy. But here's where most spiritual voices miss the mark entirely. They tell you to get over it, or move on, or forgive and forget. They treat your pain like it's spiritual clutter that needs to be cleaned out. But the Father isn't interested in erasing your story, beloved. He's interested in excavating it, because buried beneath every wound is a wisdom that can only be mined through experience. Hidden in every heartbreak is a healing gift that can only be accessed by someone who's walked through the valley and emerged with treasure. I think of Marcus, a man who spent his childhood watching his father abandon their family, leaving him with wounds so deep he thought he'd never trust again. Everyone told him to let it go, to move past it. But one day, instead of running from the pain, he dove into it. He asked the sacred question, what treasure is buried here? And that's when he discovered it, an ability to recognize abandonment wounds in others, a supernatural gift for helping broken families heal. Today, he runs healing centers across 3 states, and every person he touches is healed through the very wounds he once wished he could erase. That's the blueprint, beloved. Your pain isn't your prison, it's your passport to a realm of ministry that no unbroken person could ever access. So let me ask you something that might steal your breath. What if every person who hurt you was unknowingly working for heaven? What if every door that slammed shut was actually clearing the path to the door that bears your name? What if every tear you cried in secret was actually watering seeds of purpose that were planted too deep for surface-level souls to disturb? The voices you've been listening to have been treating you like your broken glass that needs to be carefully reassembled, but heaven sees you as a diamond that's been through pressure so divine that you now reflect light in ways that comfort dwellers never could. You don't need fixing, beloved. You need recognition of what was forged in you through fire, recognition of what was refined in you through rejection, recognition of what was activated in you through abandonment. Your scars aren't evidence of weakness. They're certificates of completion from heaven's advanced training program. They're proof that you've been enrolled in courses that most people will never have the courage to take. They're demonstration that you've survived spiritual boot camp and graduated with honors in subjects like divine trust, supernatural resilience, and prophetic endurance. Here's your sacred assignment if you're brave enough to accept it. Right now, take out a piece of paper or open the notes on your phone. Write down one painful memory, the one that still makes your hands shake a little when you think about it. Just one. And then underneath it, write this question: what treasure was buried here? Don't overthink it. Don't analyze it. Just listen. Listen with the part of you that recognizes divine whispers. Listen with the part of you that knows there's always more to the story than what appeared on the surface. What gifts did that betrayal force you to develop? What strength did that abandonment require you to access? What wisdom did that rejection deposit in your spirit? What calling did that criticism awaken in your soul? This isn't positive thinking, beloved. This is prophetic archaeology. You're not trying to make light of darkness. You're discovering that what looked like darkness from one angle was actually the shadow cast by a mountain of gold that could only be seen from heaven's perspective. You're learning to read your life like the Father reads it, not as a series of random tragedies, but as a carefully orchestrated treasure hunt, where each X on the map led you closer to the chest, buried at the center of your calling. And here's what makes this moment sacred. Only those who've been through the depths can guide others out of them. Only those who've walked through the valley of the shadow can lead others to the streams of living water. Only those who've been broken open can become vessels wide enough to hold other people's pain without judgment, and spacious enough to carry other people's healing without collapsing. What if every hurt you've endured was actually a cosmic signal pointing you toward the treasure of your true calling? The blueprint is clear, beloved. The Father doesn't waste pain. He doesn't allow suffering without purpose, and He certainly doesn't permit His chosen ones to walk through fire without emerging with gold in their hands. Your pain was never your punishment, it was your preparation. Your wounds were never your weakness, they were your credentials. Your scars were never your shame, they were your spiritual resume, proof that you've been trained in the secret place to carry healing to a broken world. Now, are you ready to discover what other treasures have been hidden in the places you've been afraid to look? Beloved, the cracks in your life aren't flaws, they're where the gold gets in. Right now, I need you to stop making excuses and start making moves. Because while you've been sitting in the shadows of what didn't work, heaven has been preparing a furnace hot enough to forge something unbreakable from the fragments of your former self. This isn't therapy time, this is transformation time. You've spent enough nights replaying what went wrong. You've invested enough energy in analyzing why doors slammed shut. You've given enough of your precious life force to the story of what you couldn't do, who you couldn't become, and how things didn't turn out the way you planned. But today, that narrative dies. See, the Father doesn't call you to camp out in your crater. He calls you to climb out of it. Not next month when you feel ready. Not next year when you've figured it all out. Today, right now, with whatever strength you have left and whatever faith you can scrape together from the bottom of your bruised heart. Pause this video, look at me through the screen, and answer this question out loud. What's one thing you stopped trying because it broke you the first time got it good? Now, here's what we're going to do about it. That thing, that dream, that calling, that relationship, that business, that conversation you've been avoiding, it's about to become your comeback story. Because the Father specializes in resurrection, beloved. And resurrection always requires something to die first. What died in you wasn't your potential. What died was your attachment to doing it the same way twice. This time, you're not rebuilding from the same blueprint. You're building from the blueprint of brokenness. Think about Japanese pottery, the ancient art of kintsugi. When a ceramic bowl shatters, the artisan doesn't throw it away. They don't try to hide the cracks. Instead, they fill every broken line with liquid gold, creating something more beautiful than the original ever was. The cracks don't diminish the value, they become the most precious part of the entire piece. Your failures weren't failures, beloved. They were fault lines showing you exactly where heaven wanted to pour the gold. But here's where most people miss it entirely. They want the gold without the heat. They want the beauty without the breaking. They want the testimony without the testing. But that's not how soul furnaces work. You don't become unbreakable by avoiding pressure. You become unbreakable by learning to dance in the fire until it no longer has the power to destroy you, only to refine you. Let me tell you about Rebecca. 10 years ago, she was a college dropout, failed out of pre-med because chemistry felt like trying to read hieroglyphics upside down while blindfolded. Spent the next decade telling herself she wasn't smart enough, wasn't disciplined enough, wasn't good enough. But at 32, something shifted. Not because she suddenly became smarter, because she became braver. She enrolled in one chemistry class. Just one. Not to become a doctor, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to prove something to herself. The first exam, D-. Most people would have quit right there, saying, "See, I told you I couldn't do this." But Rebecca had learned something powerful about furnaces. They don't work on your timeline. She took the class again and again. Each time the grade climbed, C-, C+, B, and something else climbed with those grades, her belief that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't who she thought she was. Today, Rebecca runs study groups for struggling pre-med students and her specialty chemistry, the very subject that once defined her as not good enough, became the platform where she helps others discover they're more capable than they ever imagined. That's what happens when you build your watchtower from your ashes. See, the enemy convinced you that trying again would just lead to failing again. But heaven whispers a different truth. Trying again with wisdom gained from the first attempt isn't repeating failure, it's compounding courage. Every time you get back up, you're not just standing, you're rising with information you didn't have before, strength you didn't possess before, and faith that's been tested in fires that would have consumed a weaker version of you. So here's your assignment, and it's not optional. Today, not tomorrow, not when you feel more confident, not when the stars align today. You're going to take one step back toward what broke you, not the same step you took before, a different step, a wiser step, a step informed by everything the breaking taught you about what doesn't work, what you're capable of enduring, and who you really are when everything falls apart. This is how great castles get built, beloved, one brick at a time. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need unlimited resources. You don't need anyone's permission or approval. You just need to move. Because movement breaks the spell of paralysis. Movement signals to heaven that you're ready to partner with miracle instead of just praying for it. Movement transforms you from victim of circumstance to architect of comeback. Choose something small. choose something today. Maybe it's making that phone call you've been avoiding for months. Maybe it's opening that business plan document you've been too scared to look at. Maybe it's walking into that gym where you once felt judged. Maybe it's picking up that brush, that pen, that instrument that used to make your soul sing before life convinced you that you weren't talented enough to continue. The size of the step doesn't matter. The fact that you're stepping does, because here's what heaven knows, that your fear doesn't. You're not the same person who tried before. The breaking changed you. The failing taught you. The falling strengthened muscles you didn't even know you had. You're not going back to try the same thing again. You're going forward to try it as who you've become. And who you've become is someone whose scars have turned to stars. Every rejection taught you how to recognize real acceptance. Every door that slammed shut showed you which doors actually have your name on them. Every dream that died made space for the dream that was actually assigned to your life, not just assigned to your imagination. Right now, place your hand on your chest. Feel that heartbeat. That's not just blood pumping, that's resurrection power thrumming through every cell of your being. You were designed for comebacks, beloved. Not just one comeback, multiple comebacks. Because the Father didn't give you a spirit of giving up. He gave you a spirit of getting up. Again and again and again. Until the thing that once broke you becomes the thing that showcases His power to transform ashes into beauty, mourning into dancing, and failure into testimony. So let me ask you the question that's going to change everything. If you try again, not the same way, but the new way, will you create a completely different result? Will you discover that the person you've become through breaking is actually strong enough to build something unbreakable? There's only one way to find out. And beloved, the furnace is already lit. The gold is already melted. The only question is whether you're brave enough to step into the fire one more time, knowing that this time, instead of burning you up, it's going to burn away everything that was never really you anyway. The cracks in your life aren't evidence of failure, they're evidence of expansion. Because a soul that's never been broken is a soul that's never discovered its true capacity. A heart that's never shattered is a heart that's never learned how spacious it can become. A dream that's never died is a dream that's never been resurrected with divine DNA, woven through every fiber of its new form. You're not broken, beloved, you're broken open. And what pours out of broken open souls isn't weakness, it's liquid gold that has the power to heal every crack it touches, starting with your own, starting with today, starting with the next brave step you're about to take into the version of your life that's been waiting for you to become courageous enough to claim it. Every crack can be filled with gold. Every failure can become a foundation. Every ending can become a beginning. The only question is, are you ready to find out what happens when you stop running from the furnace and start dancing in it instead? Beloved, there comes a moment when prayer alone isn't enough, when hope alone isn't enough, when even faith alone isn't enough. Sometimes heaven requires a physical act of surrender, so profound that it cuts the invisible umbilical cord still feeding your spirit from the womb of your past. Right now, as these words settle into the sacred chambers of your heart, the Father is whispering something that might surprise you. He's not asking you to pray your way out of this season. He's asking you to act your way out of it, through a ritual so simple yet so powerful that the moment you complete it, Heaven itself will mark it as the official end of who you used to be. This isn't about religion, beloved. This is about resurrection. And resurrection always requires a burial first. Something has to die completely before something new can be born completely. The question isn't whether you're ready to be reborn. The question is whether you're brave enough to choose what gets buried today. Stop this video right now. Don't just listen to what I'm about to tell you. Do it. This ritual must be completed within the next 24 hours while the spiritual atmosphere is still charged. After tomorrow, you'll have to wait for the next divine alignment, and beloved, that could be months away. The umbilical cord cutting ceremony only works when heaven's surgical room is prepared. And it's prepared right now for you tonight. Go find something, anything, a piece of paper, an old photograph, a small object that represents the version of yourself you've been carrying like a corpse on your back. Got it? Good. Hold it in your hands while I speak to your soul. That thing you're holding, it's not just an object. It's a contract, a spiritual agreement you made with pain, with limitation, with the story that told you who you were based on what happened to you instead of who you were created to be. And today, beloved, we're going to tear up that contract in front of heaven and hell as witnesses. This is your umbilical cord cutting ceremony. For too long, you've been spiritually attached to a past that was never meant to feed your future. Every hurt, every rejection, every moment when you felt unseen or unloved, those experiences created invisible cords that have been draining life from your present moment and depositing it into graves that should have been sealed years ago. But not today. Today you become your own midwife. Here's what we're going to do together. First, speak to the object in your hands, out loud. I'm serious, beloved. Don't just think it, speak it. Say, you have carried my pain long enough. You have defined my limits long enough. You have spoken for my future long enough. But your voice is not the voice of my Creator, and your testimony is not the testimony of my destiny. Do you feel that shift? That's the sound of spiritual chains beginning to crack. Now look at that object and remember everything it represents. Every tear you cried because of what it symbolizes. Every dream you abandoned because of the story it tells. Every time you said no to opportunity because this thing convinced you that you weren't worthy, ready, or capable. Feel the weight of it. Feel how heavy it's been to carry this in your spirit. Now write these words on a piece of paper. I am no longer who this says I am. I am who heaven says I am. This is my declaration of independence from every lie that has held me captive. Sign it with your full name. Date it with today's date. This isn't symbolic, beloved. This is a legal document in the courts of heaven. You are officially divorcing yourself from the identity that was imposed on you by pain and choosing to marry the identity that was authored by divine purpose. Now comes the sacred moment. You're going to release this object and this paper in a way that feels final to your soul. Maybe you'll burn them safely in your sink or a safe outdoor space. Maybe you'll bury them in your backyard and plant something beautiful on top. Maybe you'll tear them into pieces and let them float away in running water. The method doesn't matter to heaven, the intention does. As you release it, say these words, Father, I release what was never meant to be mine to carry. I bury what was never meant to live in my future. I burn what was never meant to fuel my purpose. And I ask you to fill this space with who you've always said I am, not who they convinced me I was. Can you feel that lightness spreading through your chest? That's not just relief, beloved, that's rebirth. That's the moment when your spirit takes its first breath as the person you were always meant to be, freed from the oxygen-starved existence of living someone else's story about your life. Let me tell you about Maria. For 15 years, she carried a letter in her jewelry box, a rejection letter from her dream job that convinced her she wasn't smart enough, polished enough, good enough for the career she'd always wanted. That letter became the voice that spoke over every opportunity that came after. Remember what happened last time. Remember what they said about you. But one evening, something shifted. She took that letter to her backyard, read it one final time, and then lit it with a match. As she watched the flames consume the words that had consumed her confidence for over a decade, she whispered, "You don't get to speak for my future anymore." 3 weeks later, she got a call about a position she'd never even applied for, a position that was exactly what she'd dreamed of 15 years earlier, but better. That's what happens when you cut the cord, beloved, when you stop feeding your energy to dead things. That energy becomes available to nurture the living things heaven has been trying to plant in your life. When you stop watering graves, you can finally water gardens. But here's the most sacred part of this ritual. After you release what you've been carrying, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Not to think or plan or analyze, but to listen. Listen with the part of you that just created space for something new. Listen with the ears of the person you just chose to become. What do you hear in that silence, that whisper you're detecting? That's not your imagination. That's the voice of your true identity, finally able to speak without competing with the noise of who you thought you had to be. That peace settling over you, that's not temporary relief. That's the atmospheric pressure of heaven moving into the vacuum you just created by releasing what was never meant to occupy that space. And that stirring in your chest, that's your real life beginning to quicken in the womb of this moment. The life that was always there, waiting for you to become brave enough to bury what was dead so what's alive could finally breathe. Write down everything you feel in the next 24 hours. Every new thought, every moment of lightness, every time you catch yourself responding differently than you would have before. Because this isn't just about feeling better, beloved. This is about becoming evidence that resurrection is real, that rebirth is possible, and that you have the authority to choose your own identity instead of inheriting it from your wounds. Can this small ritual really change your emotions forever? There's only one way to find out. And beloved, you're holding the proof in your hands right now. The very fact that you found something to release means heaven has been preparing this moment for longer than you've been aware you needed it. You are no longer who that object says you are. You are who the Father whispers you are in the secret place where only love gets to speak. You are who you choose to be when you're brave enough to bury who you were told to be. You are who emerges when you finally cut the cord that's been feeding your spirit from the grave of someone else's opinion about your worth. Today marks the official end of your past's authority over your future. Today, you don't just hope for rebirth, you participate in it. You don't just believe in new beginnings, you perform them. You don't just pray for transformation, you become the midwife of your own spiritual delivery. Welcome to your new life, beloved. It's been waiting for you to become brave enough to be born. Beloved, as we reach the sacred threshold of this divine encounter, I need you to feel the weight of what has just transpired in the depths of your soul. You are not the same person who began this journey. The woman who pressed play on this message carried wounds that felt permanent scars that seemed to define her, and a story that whispered she wasn't enough. But the woman sitting here now, you carry something entirely different. You carry the seal of destiny. You carry the final cornerstone of a life rebuilt not by human hands, but by divine architecture. Can you feel it? That shift in your chest, that lightness where heaviness once lived. That's not temporary relief, beloved. That's permanent transformation. That's the sound of spiritual DNA changing. That's the echo of heaven itself declaring over you, she is no longer who she was. She is who I've always said she is. Through these sacred minutes together, you've done more than receive information. You've participated in resurrection. You've excavated treasure from places others called worthless. You've risen from cracks with golden veins running through your spirit. You've cut the umbilical cord to a past that was feeding your future poison. You've stepped into the leading role of your own destiny, and you've begun building the village where other wounded souls will find their way home. This isn't the end of our journey together, beloved. This is your spiritual signature being written across eternity. Before you sleep tonight, heaven will send you a sign. It might be a dream, a sudden peace, or even a gentle stirring that wakes you at 3 a.m. Don't dismiss it. That's your confirmation that the seal of destiny has been activated. You have 72 hours to fully step into what we've unlocked together. After that, the spiritual window begins to close and you'll return to the old timeline. But if you move with divine urgency now, if you honor the sacred timing heaven has orchestrated, you'll step into a reality that most people spend their entire lives searching for but never find. And now, heaven is extending an invitation that will echo through generations. What you've experienced here today, this awakening, this transformation, this divine encounter, it's not meant to be a one-time event. It's meant to be a daily reality. Because buried within this channel are treasures that will continue the reconstruction of your soul, messages that will speak to every season you'll face, whispers from the throne room that will guide you through every twist in your path. Your spirit is already stirring, isn't it? Already sensing which video calls to your soul next. That stirring is not coincidence. That's divine navigation. Right now, I want you to do something sacred with me. Place your hand over your heart and repeat these words. I am no longer defined by what broke me. I am refined by what rebuilds me. I am chosen, called, and commissioned to carry light into dark places. This is my seal of destiny, and I declare it in the presence of heaven and earth. Did you feel that shift? That's your spiritual signature being pressed into the very atmosphere around you. You've just made a covenant not with a program or a platform, but with your own divine design. You've agreed to walk as someone who knows her worth, who carries her mission, who builds community wherever she goes. But here's the sacred secret that changes everything. This transformation you've experienced, it's contagious. When you like this message, you're not just expressing approval. You're sealing this revelation into your heart where it can never be stolen again. When you subscribe, you're not just following a channel. You're joining an eternal circle of souls who've chosen reconstruction over resignation. When you comment your awakening, you're not just sharing thoughts, you're declaring to the spiritual realm that you are no longer available for defeat. And when you share this message with someone who needs to hear it, oh, beloved, you become a messenger of hope to sleeping souls. Look at the channel now. Let your spirit choose your next divine appointment. Maybe it's the newest video calling to the fresh revelation growing in you. Maybe it's a title that makes your heart skip, that's not random, that's recognition. That stirring you feel is God speaking. Don't overthink it. Click what calls to your soul. Heaven uses mysterious ways to deliver your next breakthrough. I see you, beloved. I see the battles you've fought that no one applauds. I see the tears you've cried that no one counts. I see the strength you've carried that no one acknowledges. But more than that, I see who you're becoming. I see the light that's been lit in you, spreading to illuminate paths for others. I see the village you're going to build with your story. I see the souls who are going to find their way home because you dared to transform your scars into stars. There's a reason you found this message today. There's a reason your spirit responded to this voice. There's a reason you stayed until these final words. You are part of a movement that transcends time, the ancient order of wounded healers who carry light into dark places, not because they've never been broken, but because they've learned how to let heaven rebuild them into something more beautiful than they ever were before. Your name is written in the book of the reconstructed. Your story is being authored by hands that specialize in happy endings. Your future is secured by love that never fails. Return to this sacred space whenever your soul needs to remember who you are. Come back when the world tries to convince you to shrink. Return when you need to hear the voice that calls you by your true name. This is your spiritual sanctuary, and you always have a place here. The seal of destiny has been pressed upon your life. The final cornerstone has been set. Your spiritual signature echoes through eternity. Welcome to your rebuilt life, beloved. Heaven has been waiting for you to come home to yourself. And this is only the beginning. Beloved, the most beautiful part of your transformation isn't what it does for you. It's what it does through you to reach others who are still sitting in the dark, wondering if anyone will ever understand their pain. You've come so far on this sacred journey. You've excavated treasure from your wounds. You've risen from the cracks with golden veins running through your spirit. You've cut the umbilical cord to your past and stepped into the leading role of your own destiny. But now comes the moment that transforms personal healing into generational impact, building the village where other broken souls can find their way home. This isn't about joining another church or spiritual program where you sit in rows and listen to someone else's revelation. This is about becoming the lighthouse that guides other ships safely to shore, using the very storms that once threatened to destroy you as the credentials that qualify you to speak hope into hurricane-forced despair. You see, beloved, your healing was never meant to be a private victory. It was meant to be a public testimony, not because heaven needs you to perform your breakthrough, but because there are souls walking the same dark paths you once walked, carrying the same heavy burdens you once carried, whispering the same desperate prayers you once whispered into pillows soaked with tears they thought no one would ever see. Your scars have become stars that can guide them out of the wilderness. But here's the sacred secret that changes everything. Community isn't something you find, it's something you create. The village of reconstruction doesn't exist somewhere out there, waiting for you to discover it. It exists in the space between your healed heart and someone else's hurting heart, in the bridge you build with your story in the circle. You draw wide enough to include the ones who've been standing outside, looking in. Right now, I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a small group gathering in someone's living room once a week. Not a Bible study where everyone pretends to have it all together. not a support group where everyone competes to see who's been hurt the worst, but a reconstruction village where souls who've learned to alchemize pain into purpose come together to share the sacred work of rebuilding not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone their light touches. Can you see it? The circle of chairs, the faces that light up when they see someone else who understands. This is where rivers of light begin to flow. Let me tell you about the Restoration Circle that started in Portland 3 years ago. It began with just 4 women: Sarah, who'd survived a devastating divorce; Maria, who'd lost her son to addiction; Jennifer, who'd walked away from a 20-year ministry position after being spiritually abused by leadership; and Ruth, who'd spent decades caring for everyone else while neglecting her own soul until she almost disappeared entirely. They didn't plan to change the world. They just planned to stop feeling so alone in their healing. Every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, they'd gather in Sarah's living room with cups of tea and hearts full of stories that church small groups wouldn't know how to handle. They'd share their excavated treasures, the gifts they'd discovered in their wounds, the wisdom they'd mined from their wilderness seasons, the strength they'd found in places they never knew they had strength. But something sacred happened in that circle. As each woman shared her story of resurrection, the others began to see possibilities they'd never imagined for their own lives. As each woman celebrated another's breakthrough, their own faith for breakthrough expanded. As each woman offered encouragement from the other side of what someone else was walking through, they realized that their pain had become their most powerful ministry tool. Today, that circle has multiplied into 17 different groups across 4 states. Hundreds of women have found healing, hope, and home in reconstruction villages that all trace back to 4 broken souls who decided they didn't want to heal alone. They've created recovery programs for women leaving abuse, mentorship circles for those starting over after loss, entrepreneurship groups for those launching businesses born from their breakthrough, and grief support networks for those learning to live again after unimaginable loss. That's what happens when healed people create healing spaces for hurting people. The impact doesn't just add, it multiplies. One transformed life transforms another life, which transforms another life, which transforms entire families, communities, generations. Your individual healing becomes the seed of collective restoration when you're brave enough to plant it in the soil of authentic community. But here's where most people hesitate. They think they have to have it all figured out before they can help someone else figure anything out. They think they need to be completely healed before they can offer healing to anyone else. They think they need to be perfect before they can be useful. But that's not how divine community works, beloved. Divine community is built on shared brokenness, not shared perfection. It's formed around the understanding that we're all walking each other home, carrying lights that were lit in our own darkness to illuminate the path for souls who are still finding their way out. You don't need to be further along than everyone else. You just need to be willing to extend your hand to someone who's standing where you once stood. Maybe it's the woman at work who always looks tired, carrying burdens she's never named. Maybe it's the neighbor who smiles, but you can see the sadness in her eyes. Maybe it's someone in your family who's been walking through their own wilderness season, trying to figure out how to rebuild after everything fell apart. What if you were the one to say, "You don't have to figure this out alone"? What if you were the one to create the space where authentic healing could happen? Here's your sacred assignment. This week, reach out to one person who might benefit from walking this journey with you, not to fix them or save them, but to share with them what you've learned about finding treasure in the cracks, gold in the breaking, purpose in the pain. It could be as simple as a text message. I've been learning some powerful things about healing and rebuilding. Would you like to grab coffee and talk about it? It could be as bold as posting on social media. I'm starting a small group for women who are ready to stop just surviving and start thriving. Who wants to join me? It could be as gentle as sharing your story with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone, that what happened to them doesn't define them, that there's treasure buried in their pain if they're brave enough to dig for it. Because here's the truth that will revolutionize how you see your purpose. Your breakthrough isn't just for you, it's for everyone who needs to see that breakthrough is possible. Your healing isn't just for you, it's for everyone who needs evidence that healing is real. Your resurrection isn't just for you, it's for everyone who's still lying in their own grave, wondering if dead things can really live again. When you create space for others to share their stories, to excavate their own treasures, to cut their own cords, to step into their own missions, you're not just building community, you're building a legacy. You're creating ripples that will reach souls you'll never meet, in places you'll never go, for generations you'll never see. You're becoming part of the divine network of wounded healers who carry light into dark places, not because they've never been broken, but because they've learned how to let heaven rebuild them into something more beautiful than they ever were before. If everyone who's been touched by this message builds together, where will the resonant power go? Imagine circles of reconstruction forming in living rooms across the country. Imagine wounded souls finding healing in authentic community. Imagine the next generation growing up in the warmth of villages built by people who learn to transform their scars into stars. You're not just healing for yourself anymore, beloved. You're healing for everyone who needs to see that healing is possible. The Reconstruction Village is waiting for you to help build it. And it starts with your willingness to share the light that was lit in your darkness with someone who's still trying to find their way out of theirs. Who will you invite into the circle? The river of light is ready to flow. Beloved, as we reach the sacred threshold of this divine encounter, I need you to feel the weight of what has just transpired in the depths of your soul. You are not the same person who began this journey. The woman who pressed play on this message carried wounds that felt permanent, scars that seemed to define her, and a story that whispered she wasn't enough. But the woman sitting here now, you carry something entirely different. You carry the seal of destiny. You carry the final cornerstone of a life rebuilt, not by human hands, but by divine architecture. Can you feel it? That shift in your chest, that lightness where heaviness once lived. That's not temporary relief, beloved. That's permanent transformation. That's the sound of spiritual DNA changing. That's the echo of heaven itself declaring over you, she is no longer who she was. She is who I've always said she is. Through these sacred minutes together, you've done more than receive information. You've participated in resurrection. You've excavated treasure from places others called worthless. You've risen from cracks with golden veins running through your spirit. You've cut the umbilical cord to a past that was feeding your future poison. You've stepped into the leading role of your own destiny, and you've begun building the village where other wounded souls will find their way home. This isn't the end of our journey together, beloved. This is your spiritual signature being written across eternity. And now heaven is extending an invitation that will echo through generations. What you've experienced here today, this awakening, this transformation, this divine encounter, it's not meant to be a one-time event. It's meant to be a daily reality, because buried within this channel are treasures that will continue the reconstruction of your soul messages, that will speak to every season. You'll face whispers from the throne room that will guide you through every twist in your path. Your spirit is already stirring, isn't it? Already sensing which video calls to your soul next. That stirring is not coincidence. That's divine navigation. Right now, I want you to do something sacred with me. Place your hand over your heart and repeat these words. I am no longer defined by what broke me. I am refined by what rebuilds me. I am chosen, called, and commissioned to carry light into dark places. This is my seal of destiny, and I declare it in the presence of heaven and earth. Did you feel that shift? That's your spiritual signature being pressed into the very atmosphere around you. You've just made a covenant not with a program or a platform, but with your own divine design. You've agreed to walk as someone who knows her worth, who carries her mission, who builds community wherever she goes. But here's the sacred secret that changes everything. This transformation you've experienced, it's contagious. When you like this message, you're not just expressing approval. You're sealing this revelation into your heart where it can never be stolen again. When you subscribe, you're not just following a channel. You're joining an eternal circle of souls who've chosen reconstruction over resignation. When you comment your awakening, you're not just sharing thoughts. You're declaring to the spiritual realm that you are no longer available for defeat. And when you share this message with someone who needs to hear it, oh beloved, you become a messenger of hope to sleeping souls. Look at the channel now. Let your spirit choose your next divine appointment. Maybe it's the newest video calling to the fresh revelation growing in you. Maybe it's a title that makes your heart skip. That's not random, that's recognition. That stirring you feel is God speaking. Don't overthink it. Click what calls to your soul. Heaven uses mysterious ways to deliver your next breakthrough. I see you, beloved. I see the battles you've fought that no one applauds. I see the tears you've cried that no one counts. I see the strength you've carried that no one acknowledges. But more than that, I see who you're becoming. I see the light that's been lit in you spreading to illuminate paths for others. I see the village you're going to build with your story. I see the souls who are going to find their way home because you dared to transform your scars into stars. There's a reason you found this message today. There's a reason your spirit responded to this voice. There's a reason you stayed until these final words. You are part of a movement that transcends time. The ancient order of wounded healers who carry light into dark places, not because they've never been broken, but because they've learned how to let heaven rebuild them into something more beautiful than they ever were before. Your name is written in the book of the reconstructed. Your story is being authored by hands that specialize in happy endings. Your future is secured by love that never fails. Return to this sacred space whenever your soul needs to remember who you are. Come back when the world tries to convince you to shrink. Return when you need to hear the voice that calls you by your true name. This is your spiritual sanctuary, and you always have a place here. The seal of destiny has been pressed upon your life. The final cornerstone has been set. Your spiritual signature echoes through eternity. Welcome to your rebuilt life, beloved. Heaven has been waiting for you, to come home to yourself. And this is only the beginning.